was reading in the New York Times about an opera singer a couple of weeks ago singing at the Metropolitan Opera, and he sang an aria with 9 high C's in a row, and it brought the house down, and in a way that hasn't been seen very much. It's brought the house down, and so the conductor winked at it and just had to do it all over again. And that's what I was thinking, listening to Wendy sing. You know, I don't know why I should waste your time in a 20-minute sermon. Have Wendy sing one more time and then go home. But I get paid by the word, so you're going to get the sermon. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Beth. This is wonderful. In our church, for Alita and me, and therefore for you, the Sunday sermon is the result of a confluence of events. In other words, stuff comes together. That's not how many others do it. A lot of churches work off a 3-year cycle of scriptures that rotate, so that every week the preacher is provided with 3 scriptures that they're expected to preach about. We don't do that. I knew a pastor once whose sermons were completely finished 3 years in advance. We don't do that, definitely. My Uncle Lloyd used to get up every Sunday morning at 5 a.m. to start preparing his sermon. We don't do that. For us, stuff comes together. It can be ideas or verses or events or conversations or needs. It can be God's nudges in all sorts of ways, hence inspiration, the Holy Spirit. The upside to this approach is that if you don't like a sermon, we can just together blame it on God. Now, today's subject matter has been percolating for a while, faith, or the lack thereof. Faith has been coming at me from every direction, hard, direct, for 3 weeks, day after day, chance encounter after chance encounter, by email, text, and in person. Faith. What is it people want to know? How to get it, how to hold on to it, how to grow it, fix it, renew it, use it. Faith. Now, in some ways, faith is our bread and butter. Without faith, Christianity is just a feel-good philosophy, sort of a theological Dr. Phil plus Oprah. But when you toss faith in the middle of it, then suddenly we're dealing with inexplicable miracles and undeniable strength and amazing wonders and extraordinary courage. Those are the byproducts of faith in everyday life for billions of people. Now, this fixation on faith as a topic began with Bible study a few weeks ago, the story that we just heard about Zacchaeus. Jesus comes to Zacchaeus' town at the height of his popularity, drawing a huge crowd, and Zacchaeus decides that he actually wants to see Jesus, but from a safe distance, more than an arm's length. And so he climbs a tree along the main street to observe, to watch, perhaps to judge, or to gauge, or to analyze in some way. Now, before I forget, it is vital that we remember that Zacchaeus was one of the bad guys. Everyone in town despised him. He worked for Israel's enemy, the Roman government. His job as the chief tax collector was to enrich Rome at the expense of his own Jewish people and to line his own pockets at the same time. He was a shakedown artist. He was an extortionist, let's face it. He was a traitor to his own people and his own neighbors. And so it's easy for us to imagine his life. He's living in the lap of luxury, certainly, spending his time currying favor with the enemy, cheating his neighbors, yet still hated and treated with scorn. People wouldn't talk with his wife in the marketplace. Other kids wouldn't play with his kids. And Zacchaeus' only friends were other cheats and other traitors. I've never forgotten a poem from my favorite English class, Richard Cory by Edwin Arlington Robinson. Richard Cory was a man of substance in his town, successful, imperious, rich, the poet wrote. Yes, richer than the king. The townspeople couldn't imagine such wealth. And then comes the final stanza. So on we worked and waited for the light, and went without meat and cursed the bread. And Richard Cory, one calm summer night, went home and put a bullet through his head. Despite all, something was missing in that tragic man's life. Richard Cory was sort of Zacchaeus minus Jesus, Zacchaeus minus faith. They both had a lot, and yet were missing something. Something elemental, something meaningful, something satisfying. Whatever it was missing in Zacchaeus drove him to climb that tree. He wanted, the Bible says, to see Jesus. Not religion, not clergy, not church. He didn't live that far from Jerusalem, so with his favored position in government, he could have summoned any religious leader he wanted just by a flick of his finger, or he could have arranged for a VIP tour of the great temple in Jerusalem. Instead, this reviled, hated, true enemy of the people climbed a tree to see Jesus. Now, I've told you a lot, even in a recent sermon, about this priest friend of mine that I have in the Czech Republic, Father Tomáš Halík. I first learned about him from his book, Patience with God, which is all about Zacchaeus. Now, Father Halík grew up under communism, officially atheistic communism, behind the Iron Curtain, under the old Soviet Union in the old Czechoslovakia. But my friend became a Christian and then was ordained as a secret priest until communism was overthrown. When communism was overthrown, once that happened, the Czech people, and if any of you have been to Prague in the last 10 years, the Czech people enthusiastically embraced modern democracy and capitalism and freedom and do your own thing and anything goes, sort of unbridled secularism. And what this has meant for my friend Father Halík is that he has spent his whole life under some form of atheism, whether old-time communism, antipathy toward religion, or today's apathy, shoulder shrug toward religion. And nowadays, I suppose we could use several names for it. Atheism, which means literally without belief, or agnosticism, which means I don't know, I'm not sure. Or secularism, which puts religion out on the back porch, out of sight. Or humanism, which puts us, people, humans, as the be-all and end-all. Whatever we call it, the end result is that religion, faith, God, church, all of that is increasingly irrelevant, dismissed, just not that important, out of the picture. As a result, religious people, church types like us, professionals like me, we tend to feel threatened by those other kinds of people who don't believe or find it hard to believe or to hold dear what we count as precious. We're naturally upset when we hear of some attempt to take "In God We Trust" off the money, or take "Under God" out of the Pledge of Allegiance, or to forbid nativity scenes from town property, or Christmas carols in public schools. It feels like they're coming after us. But Father Halík has told me repeatedly, just watch, he says. Keep your eyes open. Look around you. Look up. And you'll see Zacchaeus up in the tree. Lots of Zacchaeuses up in lots of trees. And they're all there for the same reason. They want to see Jesus. The modern, dead certain atheist, the I'm not so sure agnostic, the very busy, self-absorbed, secular humanist, they are Zacchaeus. Maybe they're not as non-believer as they make themselves out to be, or as we think they are. They may not actually be that dead certain or that self-absorbed. Maybe all that they have by itself isn't enough. Now, I'm not saying that they're ready to get baptized, or ready to join the church, or to sing in the choir, or go to Appalachia, or wear a cross out in public. I'm just saying they want to see Jesus. There's something missing in their life, and they're open enough, and that's the key, they're open enough to break out of their comfort zone, to climb a tree in order to see Jesus. That's a beginning, and never underestimate the power of the beginning. Jesus said it loud and clear. If you have the tiniest amount of faith, a smidgen, a mustard seed size faith, you can shake the world. Start with that. Start somewhere. Get to the beginning. For Zacchaeus, it was climbing up that tree. Now, I told you this sermon has been building for weeks from every which way. People keep being put in my path who want to see Jesus in one form or another. They want to know if this stuff that he stood for is true, if the stuff that he said works, if the life that he lived matters, if the love that he offered is real. And this comes to me in every form, from every age and gender. People searching, wondering, seeking. One night I was here in this very sanctuary waiting for the confirmation young people to arrive. And a woman walks in. And she says to me, I was just driving by and it looked so pretty. I had to come in. Was it okay? Sure, I told her. Would you like to sit down? No, thank you. I just wanted to see it. And then for a half hour, she stood there, looking all around, taking it all in, and then beginning to talk and ask questions. Something was missing, and something was starting to be found. Last week, I got a text from one of our church kids away at college. I was just wondering, he said, out of the blue, all those teachings of Jesus, what's the most important? And how does it relate to? And then there was a long list of life's issues for a 19-year-old. He wanted to see Jesus in relation to his life. And here's something that occurs quite often. Business people, men and women of all ages, some just getting started. We have lots of ongoing conversation. They're tasting success, some of them for the first time. There's money in the pocket. They've got some nice toys. There are some dreams that are starting to come true. But now they're thinking about climbing up that tree. They may not want to go public yet, but they want to see Jesus. Who is he really? What's he about? How would he relate to me? Now, of course, being up a tree is only half the story. It's an important half, but only half. It's what happens next that creates faith, faith that works, and faith that lasts. Zacchaeus is up in that tree, looking for what's missing, willing to see Jesus, and eventually Jesus comes along the road, and catch this sequence. Jesus looks up. He sees Zacchaeus in the tree. He calls him by name, tells him to come down, and then invites himself to Zacchaeus' house for dinner. That is very important stuff. Zacchaeus has separated himself from his town, his people, his religion. Zacchaeus has separated himself from the crowd by climbing up that tree. And Jesus bridges all of that separation. He calls him by name. How did he know his name? Divine Son of God intuition? Perhaps. Or perhaps he saw a man up in a tree and put two and two together and turned to somebody nearby and asked, who's that? What matters is that Jesus wanted to know Zacchaeus personally by name. And then he invites himself to dinner. Jesus wants to enter Zacchaeus' world, however secular, however sinful or unpopular or sketchy or political Zacchaeus' world was, and it was all of that. Jesus wanted to get in there. If Zacchaeus climbed a tree to see who Jesus was, Jesus went to Zacchaeus' house to see who Zacchaeus was. Some years ago, I became pastor of a church in Massachusetts. And the following story I was told by very proud parents, and you'll wonder why in a moment they were so proud. They told me that the first Sunday that I arrived there as pastor and was to preach from that pulpit, that first Sunday, their 16-year-old son surprised them by coming downstairs to join them just as they were leaving for church, dressed in a pair of ratty jeans and an old t-shirt. They told him, "You're not going to church dressed like that." "I guess not," he said. He walked back upstairs. I never did meet that boy. Contrast that with Jesus' response to that not so very popular Zacchaeus. Personal, friendly, gracious, affirming. He cared enough to notice Jesus. He cared enough to know Zacchaeus' name. He cared enough to go to Zacchaeus' house, to be with him, to enjoy him, to take him to heart. And all the rest of the story flows from that. Zacchaeus announces that he's going to give away half of his wealth to help others, and he's going to pay back everybody that he's cheated 4 times over. That is a saved, repentant, redeemed, changed life. That's a miracle. That is faith. Just a little bit at the beginning, but a lot more later on. And that's what my Czech priest friend was getting at. Let's stop thinking that everyone who's not with us is against us. That folks who don't believe or find it hard to believe or keep us at a distance, that they are the enemy or the competition. Instead, look around in your family, in your circle of friends. See the signs of something beginning. Those first tentative steps as they climb a tree. Don't mock it. Don't underestimate it. Don't push it. The message for us is not to be afraid of the trees or who's up there. Be glad for it. Get to know them. Enter their heart. Let them enter your heart. My son is an arborist, a professional tree climber, the old-fashioned kind. He has a gigantic slingshot by which he shoots rope high up over the branches. And then hand by hand, he propels himself up into the trees, carrying his tools with him. Once he's up there, he can begin to clear away the dead branches. Now, he does this for a living all week long, but on the weekends, he and his friends often get together and go into the woods to do it for fun. He says there's nothing like being up there, looking around and seeing things in a new way. It's always beautiful, he's told me more than once. It's always beautiful. Zacchaeus would tell us the same story. Up in that tree, away from the maddening crowd, unchained from all that has ever bound him, looking for a new perspective, starting with only the poorest amount of faith, but desiring to see Jesus. That same Jesus who would turn out to know his name and want to spend time with him. That's not a bad description of a good church. A place to see Jesus, to be known by name, to spend time together. Let's conclude with hymn number 585, the first and third verses. What a friend we have in Jesus. 585, verses 1 and 3.